I have a machine that will do that, though, if you need an echo.
Well, you're good enough, Barry. Barry, I think you could do it just on your own.
Ben, you're not late.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. I will call the Whatcom County Council meeting for October 13th, 2020 to order. I welcome everybody, and would staff please call the roll? Kathy, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yep,
I apologize.
that's fine. Go ahead.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Here?
Tyler Bird,
Here.
Todd Donovan,
Here.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Here.
Carol Frazee,
Here.
Kathy Kirshner,
Here.
Let the record show all council members are in attendance. Could you please put up an image of the flag, and we will do the flag salute.
and if everyone could just mute your microphones and you can say it to yourself while the recording plays.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're muted, Barry.
Sorry about that. Staff members, if you are, when you're not presenting or answering questions, please keep your cameras off. And then when you are speaking, please turn them on so we can see all our council members. That's all I had for announcements. I turn it over now to the county executive.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any executive report for tonight's meeting.
Okay, I can hardly hear you.
I do not have any executive report for tonight's meeting.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Donovan moves, Bird seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS, Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirshner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan.
Yes.
Just call Ben ELENBAAS again.
That passes 6-0 with Councilmember ELENBAAS out of the room. We'll move on now to our public hearings. Our first public hearing is AB 2020-390. It's an ordinance regarding installation of a stop sign on Homesteader Road. That's pages 453 through 460 in your packet. Do we have a staff report on this at all from Public Works?
Good evening, Council. Jim Karcher, Public Works Engineering. And no staff report, but I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions before we open the hearing? Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we do have an ordinance that was intended to be voted on today regarding the transparency and oversight, but I don't see a public hearing scheduled for that. I'm just wondering if that's procedurally correct. And the second is I just would like to reiterate or ask you to reiterate to the audience, if they wish to speak on that issue, it should be at the open public session.
Clerk of the Council, could you weigh in on the item Mr. Brown is asking about?
Sure. Dana Brown Davis, Clerk of the Council. No public hearing was required on that item, so that is the reason why it was not scheduled for a hearing this evening.
So those who wish to comment on it should do so in the open public session.
That's correct.
Councilmember Donovan.
Following on from that, if that's sort of, it's kind of buried through a lot of other items, finance committee items, if there's going to be people commenting on that, is there a way to move it up closer on the agenda so if people are doing the comments, they're not waiting for a couple hours for us to get to it?
Absolutely. We do need to have a public session first, but we can do it right after that, if that's what the will of the council is. Councilmember Byrd?
Yeah, thanks. That wasn't in finance committee, so it wouldn't be under our section anyway. So if we wanted to, it's got to go someplace else. If we put it in front of finance, I think that makes a lot of sense. Probably what the majority of people are here for.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Since the council agrees, I will move that to right before the consent agenda. Anywho, we will carry on with this particular public hearing on installation of a stop sign on Homesteader Road. I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this issue?
Councilmember Buchanan, would you like me to play the brief instructions on how to request to speak?
Yes, please do that. Okay, we have the public hearing is open. So is there anyone wishing to speak on stop signs on Homesteader Road?
I have no one signed up no one with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to council. What are the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion. Donovan moves and Byrd seconds to approve. Discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirshner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes,
Tyler Byrd.
Yes.
that passes unanimously. Our next public hearing is AB 2020-391. It's an ordinance to establish speed limits on Marine Drive. Do you have anything for us on this, or are you just here for questions again, Jim?
Just here for questions.
Okay, any questions for Jim on Marine Drive? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this issue?
We have one speaker with the hand raised, Gary Malik.
Okay, Gary?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking time to look at this proposal for the reduction in the speed limit on Marine Drive. And I just wanted to thank the council for taking the opportunity to do this. Also for Jason Art, who's been our liaison with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And this is just a very unique passageway in and out of our community out here in what I call Fort Bellingham. And I think the reduction in the speed limit to 30 miles an hour, we had requested 25 with some reasoning from Mr. Karcher. We're going for 30, and that would be making our community a lot safer. And I appreciate your taking this into consideration because it's really our only way in and out of the Bellingham area there on Marine Drive. So just letting you know, I personally was involved in getting the signatures, all 123 of them on the petition that you have there in your records, and everybody that I ran into was favorable to this, and some of them practically wanted to rip it out of my hands to sign it because they realize what a dangerous situation it is on that bridge. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you for taking time. That is all.
Thanks, Gary. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Thank you. We will close the public hearing. And what are the wishes of the council?
Of approval?
Second.
Bird moves, Frazee seconds, Todd's a close third. Okay, discussion on the motion. Councilmember Byrd.
Thanks. Gary, I appreciate you showing up tonight to speak to this. He, if you all recall, had sent us an email here beginning of September, I want to say, in regards to the amount of work that he did actually going out and talking to the people that live around that area and his neighbors and discussing this with them and getting that kind of mutual understanding and buy-in before it got brought forward to us. And if anyone's watched these council meetings over the last 3 years, you know that for me personally, that's incredibly important, and that I like to see everyone kind of working this out and coming together. And so, Gary, I just want to say again, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it.
Other discussion on the motion, Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. I think Gary's underselling the petition, the significance of that, because that was a huge percentage of the people in the community out there. So yeah, thanks for the work on that.
Anything else? Okay, let's vote. Please call the roll.
ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Gary Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
Todd Donovan.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Our final public hearing for tonight is AB 2020-393, which is an ordinance amending Whatcom County Code 16.30, Lake Whatcom Stormwater Utility Service Area, pages 476 through 483. Kathy, do you have any brief for us?
I'll just, go over the couple points for this. This is for the capital facilities charge for Lake Whatcom Stormwater Utility. So when the utility was adopted in July of 2019, it had a section included for a capital facilities charge. That section needed some clarification. So we, the staff got together to work with planning on the appropriate verbiage for that and have everything ready to be implemented starting January of 2021. So what's included in the amendment are 2 clarifications on definitions and one on how the CFC, the capital facilities charge, will be assessed. And other than that, Craig and myself will be available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Public Works before we open the hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. And council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Donovan moves. Kershner seconds. Discussion. Councilmember Kershner.
Hi, Kathy, can you just let us know what the issues were and how they got fixed in this ordinance collecting the capital facilities funds?
Sure. So the So the purpose was to provide a mechanism to recover costs for systems that were already in place. And so if you recall, there's about 5,800 units currently in the utility that are being collected from, and there's a potential of about 1,500. So it was really about developing the mechanism because Public Works isn't in a position to collect the money. It's an ordinance that the fee will be implemented through the unified fee schedule. So planning really needed to understand how the fee was going to be assessed, which is tying back to impervious surface coverage. And they needed to have an idea of how to collect that and when to collect that to apply it for those new applicants.
So we just had passed something without enough information about how to actually implement the procedure of collecting.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Donovan?
Yeah, this is going to be sort of the same question, but the advisory committee recommended the capital facilities charge. Council then adopted the utility with the rate for existing residences and property and the capital facilities. And then we heard back from staff that they needed to figure out a better way to wordsmith the capital facilities charge. So and then we delayed it for a year. I believe it was a year. Now it's coming back to us in terms and refined.
Other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Byrd?
Thanks. Just like the last couple of years when this has come up, I'm a hard no on this one. At the end of the day, well, Barbara's not here, so I'll reiterate her portion. It took me a while to get on board with understanding why she felt this way, but she articulated it really well at one meeting. This isn't a fee, it's a tax. It's a tax because it's in relation to your property in that area, regardless of whether you're contributing to the cause of this or not. So you get charged even if you go through all the processes of ensuring that your property has no damage or in zero runoff and contributes nothing to the lake. And so that's the big difference. And I think that's important for people to know. The other one is going to be that I really never liked the fact that this would charge people that were doing new development. The idea is, I've had a property and this is supposed to be mitigating and helping cover some of those back charges for things that we had to build out in the past due to previous damage. And this comes in and also assigns and says anyone who's going to build out a project has to pay this lump sum upfront with the development of their project, even though they already have to go through a whole bunch of mitigation to mitigate that, and that their damage wouldn't start until the day that they break ground on that project and move forward. So they shouldn't have to pay back into the previous amount or compensate for damage that was already done. The fact that you can't go through this and actually do mitigation that offsets this for you. So there's zero incentive to our community to come around and say, hey, I want to take it upon myself to improve my property and to mitigate damage because of my environment to do. I think that's flawed as well. And on and on and on. There's a dozen other issues that I have with this. And so again, this is a hard no for me. But Kathy, thank you for putting it all together. I appreciate the work.
Mr. Brown? Unmute.
Actually, just move on to the next one and come back to me. I want to look for something.
Councilmember Kershner?
Thanks. Kathy, can you tell me what the capital facilities are paying for? What's the money collected for? What are we using that money for?
I'm actually going to defer to, in general, it's to recover costs of existing facilities, but I'm going to defer to Craig Olesen. He was more involved with the process with the committee, so he can kind of relate to you more what the committee was trying to go for. Craig?
Yeah, this is Craig Olesen. I guess the way the money is going to be used, it's going to go into the fund balance, just like the funds we collect annually from all the ratepayers. So it's not going into a direct capital fund. It wasn't identified as such. It was just identified as, I guess, a way for people that are coming later into the watershed to help offset the overall costs that have been incurred over the years to put in the systems that are in place currently. So we don't anticipate an actual dollar amount each year. It's going to depend on how many people build houses. So it's going to be additional funds that are going to be somewhat hit and miss depending on the building cycle.
And so the people that currently live in the watershed aren't contributing to those costs that have already been incurred, but we're charging people that haven't built yet the cost, as Councilmember BYRD pointed out. And I know that anybody building in the watershed now has to mitigate their runoff, and don't they? I mean, that, I think I was on the council when that was passed.
Right, right. I mean, I think this one, if you think back to the committee that we had, this was brought up by a person on the committee that was in a sewer district, where this is a very common thing for regular utilities to do. And so that was sort of the origin of it. And the committee talked about it quite a bit and felt like, in their opinion, it was worthy of consideration. And so they forwarded it to the council. It's arguable for sure.
So we don't assess each parcel in the watershed for costs associated with mitigating phosphorus in the lake?
The way this is
don't have
work, just the way the fee works, and it's very similar to the one in Birch Bay. It's based on impervious surface that's established for residential properties through surveys that we went out and inventoried about 150 properties in the less than 2 acre and greater than 2 acre areas, and came up with averages. And so those averages are what is applied. So you could have more or less on your given lot, but you're going to be within the average established for a residential footprint. That's how we do it. Otherwise, we'd have to measure everything.
How much is a typical fee? How much do they pay for one ESU?
I think the ESU is 144 or so dollars, around between 144 and 150 for houses under in the 2 acre area. In the houses that above 2 acres, I believe it's twice that. It's like 280.
So in a house that's on more than 2 acres, where their impact to the lake is going to be significantly diminished, we're charging them twice as much?
Well, what we found was that the houses on the bigger lots were a lot bigger. They had bigger, longer driveways and things. What we do allow, if you go back and look at the code, is we allow for people that maybe had, let's say they had a small house on 20 acres. They could apply for a reduction based on their footprint. If they can show that they're under, I think it's the 4,500 square feet, then they get a regular rate. If they were under 2,500, they'd get the reduced small lot rate. So there's options for you if you're kind of an outlier and you're, a very small footprint on a large lot. You don't have to pay as much, but you do have to.
Go ahead.
You would have to apply for that though, and then we just.
Is this a one-time fee?
The capital facilities charge is a one-time fee. If you read it though, it's interesting because there is, under commercial, there would be, for expansion, you might have to pay it if you were over, let's say you put in additional 5,000 square feet and you were already existing, you would have to pay this fee as it's written. And that's as to the intent as it was recommended.
Councilmember Brown?
Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Kroger, what is a person paying, people affected by this ordinance, what are they currently paying for stormwater, if anything, to anybody?
Well, previous to this ordinance, they weren't. Under this ordinance, we have basically the 2 rates for residential, the 148 or whatever it is, and then the 280. And then we have For commercial, it's by what we call non-residential. So that could be condos or stores, commercial buildings. Those would be per square foot. And so an ESU is considered 4,500 square feet. So for every 4,500 square feet, they would pay an additional $144.
So, and my point is that I pay a stormwater fee living inside the city of Bellingham. If I was living on Lake Whatcom and I lived inside the city limits, I believe I would pay a stormwater fee. I don't know why we would exempt someone outside the city limits from paying a stormwater fee, given that we, the taxpayers, have to provide the infrastructure. That's to Mr. Bird's comment.
Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we've already adopted the fee that's in place. This is about the capital facilities charge. And so a couple points to that. The logic, part of the logic was that, like, so people are going to be paying in, people right now that are going to be subject to the fee are paying in. If somebody has a property that does not have a development, any development, as I understand it, they're not. So when they 10 years from now or whatever buy in, the committee looked at this as sort of a fairness thing. It's like you've got people who are going to be paying in, and they're not, and they're creating these benefits in terms of stormwater runoff for even, let's just say, for roads, so somebody can get to that undeveloped property. Even though that property might be net zero, that property has still benefited from the stormwater infrastructure because there's roads going to it that are maintained. Then they buy into this, like a sewer district, but this capital facilities charges, because it's kind of a, it was seen as an equity thing for people who will be paying, and then somebody comes in later who benefits from that and hadn't been paying. So I think that was the logic behind it. But yeah, we've already adopted the fee.
Yeah, this ordinance is just trying to make it more compatible with how planning looks at things. That's what some of those changes that Kathy referenced, as well as making it more streamlined for whoever actually is coming in for a building permit. It can all be done through the building department, and they can collect the fees there. So it's pretty seamless that way. And that was our goal in this exercise, was to try to make it less cumbersome for everybody.
Councilmember Byrd.
Barry, I have a comment, but I also want to point out that it looks like someone possibly joined the meeting late, Peter, with their hand raised. So I'm not sure if it's in relation to this, and if there's still an opportunity, if it is, for them to speak, but just an FYI. So in my comment in relation to this, part of this is also updating the definition of impervious surface. And this is one of my biggest issues before, and that really kind of gets me a lot. So this updated definition of how we look at impervious surfaces, it's not concrete, it's not my house, it's anything that would cause additional runoff that doesn't have vegetation. When you take that into context and then you rewind to last November, as a council, we passed an ordinance that would budget or approved $400,000 that came out of a fund dedicated for using upgrades around the lake, or for things that could have been used around the lake. And they could have been used in place of the funds that this money's collecting. That $400,000 is going to build out 3.5 miles of trail around Lake Whatcom. So just context, that's 18,480 square feet of impervious surface that we're paying to build, and does not count the additional bathrooms that we're putting in, the shelters that we're putting in, or the parking lot paving that we're putting in. So we're charging all of these people, saying you're doing something wrong, and we need more money to create what Todd has said is a benefit. Only to turn around and build trails and cause more damage for exactly what we're trying to offset out of the same kind of fund. So that one, I just can't wrap my head around. I mean, it's okay if I want to do it, but it's not okay if it's meaning it's your livelihood and it's where you get to live. But hey, I want some place to hike because that's nice. So that's worth the damage.
Any other discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
No.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
No.
That passes 5-2 with council members Byrd and ELENBAAS opposed. So that concludes our public hearings for this evening. We will now move into our open session. The open session is being held virtually, and members of the public wishing to speak can access how to do it on Whatcom County, www.whatcomcounty.us/join virtual council. Could staff play that video one more time? Because I know we have a lot of people that want to speak during the open session, so we could just give them those details. Okay, we will open the public session, and if staff would call out the name of the first speaker, please.
The first speaker is Richard Waits, followed by Miguel Perry and Rick Egerth. Richard?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Richard.
Hi, Council. My name is Richard Waits, Executive Vice President of UFCW 21, which represents over 45,000 grocery, healthcare, retail, and service industry workers across the state. I am speaking today against the ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. While this ordinance sounds good by its name, and we do need to address accountability for police brutality, the reality of this ordinance is straight out of the extreme right-wing Freedom Foundation playbook. This is a union-busting tactic because it only targets organized workers. It does not apply to any other contracts negotiations by Whatcom County. Whatcom County prides itself supporting pro-worker policies. We must reject this assault on workers' rights. So I urge you to reject this ordinance. Thank you.
The next speaker is Miguel Perry, followed by Rick Egerth and Rich Ewing. Go ahead, Miguel.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, council members. I'm Miguel Perry, lead representative for the Pacific Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters. I'm speaking to you tonight because, to be honest with you, I'm frustrated and disappointed with the entire county council. First of all, there's my ongoing frustration of your handling of the Cherry Point amendments. Then I was shocked to find out that our allies on the council, in opposition to the Cherry Point amendments, were supporting an anti-union contract negotiation ordinance. I understand that you may have thought this was an issue that was unimportant to private sector unions, but if that was your impression, you were wrong. The carpenters will always fight for jobs for members, but you must also know that protecting our collective bargaining rights and our ability to advocate for our members' wages, benefits, hours, and working conditions will always be a top priority. We will fight for that right for carpenters and for all union members. The carpenters continue to oppose the council's handling of the Cherry Point amendments. The council needs to vote to accept the Planning Commission's recommendations and move on to protecting and growing jobs in Whatcom County. That means the council needs to support policies that maintain and create jobs, but also show a commitment to the collective bargaining right for all union members. All unions will always stand together to protect our ability to collectively bargain and to protect the wages, benefits, hours, and working conditions for all union members. Thank you.
The next speaker is Richard. Let's see. Sorry, the next speaker is Rick Egerth, followed by Rich Ewing and John Trainer. Rick Egerth. Go ahead, please, Rick.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm speaking with regard to the ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. I live in Bellingham. While I am merely a retired non-practicing attorney, I still recall enough that I cannot help but think that this proposed ordinance is of highly questionable legality and should not be passed. First, if passed, it would imperil the right of privacy of the individual members of all what are called collective bargaining units in the ordinance, meaning unions, that are made subject to its provisions. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld an individual right of privacy found implicit in the U.S. Constitution, and the Washington State Constitution specifically grants individuals a right of privacy. Article 1, Section 7 says that no person shall be disturbed in his private affairs or his home invaded without authority of law. Under this ordinance, not only would detail of each union member's contract be accessible to the public, which I understand may now already be the rule, but this ordinance would also make public the process by which the final contract was reached. It's hard to imagine a more private affair than the negotiation of one's employment contract. How many of you council members would be happy if your employment contract negotiations were made public? It certainly would not have made me happy when I was employed. Yet that is exactly what this proposed ordinance would require. If the council has not already submitted this ordinance to a rigorous legal review, then you may be inviting just such a review through perhaps inevitable right of privacy lawsuits that you will have to defend if the ordinance passes. Second, I cannot help but wonder if this ordinance does not violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which provides that no state shall, quote, deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, unquote. How does the proposed ordinance provide equal protection of the laws? It only applies to unions and their members. Non-union employment contracts, private, not public contracts, would all still be able to maintain privacy as to the way they were negotiated. If making contract negotiations an open to the public process is so important to the public interest, then why should it not be applied to all employment contracts, private or public, individual or union? Again, if this council has not already submitted this ordinance to a rigorous legal review, do not be surprised by a legal review via ensuing lawsuits. Thank you to the members of the council for your time.
The next speaker is Rich Ewing, followed by John Trainer and Hannah. Rich Ewing, go ahead.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So yeah, my name is Rich Ewing. I live in Bellingham, a lifelong resident of Whatcom County. I'm also the Secretary Treasurer for Teamsters Local 231, where it is my distinct honor and privilege to represent over 500 members employed at Whatcom County. I'm here to speak to you tonight in opposition to the proposed ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. I respectfully ask that you reject this proposed ordinance. The nearly identical item has already been found to be in violation of the law by eliminating employees' rights to bargain collectively over ground rules for negotiations. I've sent a letter to council already with a copy of the case decision. There's no originality in this proposed ordinance. It's straight from the so-called Freedom Foundation's playbook on how to destroy public employee unions by drawing them into costly litigation, an unconscionable tactic that until now seemed highly unlikely for the Whatcom County Council to participate in. This has nothing to do with transparency. The county and Teamsters Local 231 have been participating in good faith contract negotiations for nearly a half century. These negotiations are conducted with the utmost integrity and have produced collective bargaining agreements that provide a consistent and stable work environment along with fair compensation and benefits. The insinuation that there is even the appearance of secret deal making is just plain nonsense. Trying to turn the collective bargaining between the county and the employees into some sort of a reality TV show would only serve to undermine the bargaining process, also a goal of the Freedom Foundation. Remember, the county employees that would be negatively impacted by this ordinance are the same employees who literally put their health at risk every day when they show up to work to provide the essential services for the citizens of Whatcom County during this global pandemic. They were also the first ones to step up to the plate and lead the way negotiating unpaid furlough days in the middle of a closed agreement to help relieve pressure on the county budget. So for these reasons, again, I respectfully ask that you reject this proposed ordinance. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Trainer, followed by Hannah, and then Peter Starzinski. John Trainer. Go ahead, John.
Hi, my name is John Trainer. I'm the political director for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 191. I'm here tonight to speak against the proposed ordinance increasing oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. First, the name is misleading. It implies there's no transparency in contract negotiations. This is just not true. Employees do indeed deserve to be notified how they are represented during collective bargaining, but the system for that transparency already exists within the mechanisms of their respective organizations. Taxpayers already have the right to public information. Civilian oversight is already in place through the council and other governing bodies, making this ordinance completely unnecessary. Further, the ordinance implies that secret deal-making takes place. This is as absurd as it is insulting to the employees, as well as the county's HR professionals. The only secret deal-making is in the language of this ordinance. It's crafted by the Freedom Foundation behind closed doors in a cookie-cutter format that some members of the Whatcom County Council have seen fit to introduce as if they wrote it themselves in an effort to drag employees' unions into costly litigation. It is an attempt to unilaterally take away employees' rights to bargain ground rules. This is very simply an all-out attack on collective bargaining rights, targeting public employees. IBEW Local 191 represents 355 Whatcom County residents with over 1,100 voters within those households. On behalf of those workers and their families, Local 191 strongly opposes this ordinance proposal and urges this council to vote it down. Thank you.
The next speaker is Hannah, followed by Peter Starzinski, and then Michelle Stelovich. Hannah, if you could go ahead and state your full name for the record. Go ahead, Hannah.
I'm Hannah Fishman, and I'm a Bellingham resident and a member of SEIU Healthcare 1199 West. We're a union of over 30,000 nurses and healthcare workers around the state, and many of us are members here in Whatcom County. And I'm also speaking against the open bargaining ordinance that has been proposed. This is a extremely misguided idea that really, the effect of which would really be to take away agency from workers in the county. I think one of the most important parts about being a union member is that we actually have a real voice in our workplaces, some real democracy at work, which is increasingly rare. right? Most of us go to work, and for most people in the US, you go to work and you have essentially no control, and your boss can dictate a huge, huge portion of your life. But for those of us who are union members, we have a collective voice, and we can bargain with our employer. But this ordinance, by opening up negotiations to the general public, would actually make collective bargaining, instead of a place where workers can exercise agency and democracy, would make it a place for popularity contests, and would make negotiations a profoundly undemocratic and abusive process. And I think that you can look no further than those who've suggested introducing it haven't been a friend to workers. And there's no reason to suggest that this ordinance is, presented honestly in good faith. So I urge you to not take it further.
Hannah, could you please state your last name for the record, please?
Yeah, I did. It's Fishman, Fishman.
Thank you. The next speaker is Peter Starzinski, followed by Michelle Stelovich, and then Christine Reed. Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, thank you all for having me. Thank you, council members, for having me. And I apologize in advance if you hear rowdy 5-year-olds in the back, but this is the current situation as we are all dealing with. My name is Peter Starzinski. I am the executive director of the Northwest Accountability Project. We're a Northwest-based watchdog organization that works to educate the public on individuals and organizations that attempt to bring an agenda of hate and division to the Northwest. I recently sent you all an email that is very similar to my testimony today, so I can assure you that I will keep this concise in the interest of everyone's time. You seem to have been provided information by the so-called Freedom Foundation, and I use air quotes around that because they're not really into anybody's freedom other than themselves and their billionaire donors. This could have also come from their ally, the Washington Policy Center, and it's about adopting an ordinance that would move bargaining with public sector unions in your jurisdiction into public meetings. The cookie cutter language, and I read your ordinance, and it looks to be taken straight from that template. This cookie cutter language is being solicited by the so-called Freedom Foundation and Washington Policy Center, was adopted in Lincoln County and then challenged by the Teamsters Union at the Public Employee Relations Commission, or PERC, as an unfair labor practice in 2017. In 2018, PERC, the state body that governs public employee and employer relations, including collective bargaining, ruled that one party imposing a prerequisite to bargaining on the other party is itself a condition that should be negotiated by the parties and therefore an unfair labor practice, rendering these ordinances illegal. I can send that link on the ruling if you would like, but I think you've seen it. It's online and was included in the email I sent you, and it seems other folks have sent you that ruling as well. So passage of such an ordinance would just be a waste of taxpayers' money and your time, and would essentially be dead on arrival, likely resulting in a finding of an unfair labor practice against Whatcom County if it was ever used. For some context, the so-called Freedom Foundation, again in quotes because they don't care about anyone's freedom, and Washington Policy Center are part of a national network of billionaire-funded organizations that are funded by groups, entities like the Koch brothers. They want to keep wages low, they want to slash funding for education, and most importantly, they want to take away the voices of workers on the job. Furthermore, I should add that this ordinance targets only represented workers and no other contracts negotiated with Whatcom County. It's not worth your time or the taxpayers' money to give this ordinance any thought. I'm available if you want to reach out to me. You all have my email. Again, my name is Peter Starzinski. Thank you for the time that you gave me tonight.
Our next speaker is Michelle Stelovich, followed by Christine Reed and Trevor Smith. Go ahead, Michelle.
Hello, my name is Michelle Stelvich, and I'm the president of Northwest Washington Central Labor Council, and I represent 18,000 union households. I live in Bellingham, Washington, and I'm here to speak against and urge the county council to vote no on the ordinance to increase community oversight and transparency to establish a fair contract and negotiations. This ordinance is an outright union busting ordinance. It is unfairly targeting county workers and their negotiation. It has failed nearly everywhere else in the state and has resulted in unfair labor practices and costly litigation, which we would be paying as taxpayers. The ordinance affects frontline workers, which is everyday people, and it does not allow them the right to have the freedom to be able to speak at their workplaces about their collective bargaining rights. And it is, again, right out of the Freedom Foundation's Right to Work playbook on how to get rid of unions in your county. I am saddened that this ordinance has been presented in county council, and we stand together in solidarity to protect our collective bargaining rights. And I urge you again to vote no. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Christine Reed, followed by Trevor Smith and Maxford Nelson. Go ahead, Christine.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening, council members. For the record, my name is Christine Reed, IBEW 77's political director, and I am here tonight to speak in opposition of the ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. The very title of this resolution is misleading, touting open as fair. On the contrary, open contract negotiations would only further politicize the process, creating grandstanding and theater rather than productive and fair negotiations. Open bargaining does not create transparency and fairness. Instead, it robs workers of their ability to bargain for fair hours, wages, and working conditions. Successful negotiations can only happen when there is a space to talk about the real issues at hand and where it is possible to explore all the impacts and remedies. This would not happen under the watchful eye, as both parties would hold back. This attempt at open and fair is not the first and will not be the last attack we see on public rights. If you look back, open bargaining was introduced in Lee King County, which led to unfair labor practice charges, resulting in costly litigation intended to cause harm to unions. Open negotiations open the door to third-party influence and the ability to change the outcome by merely being present. In addition, public information is readily available and built into the existing framework. In supporting this resolution, it would be in opposition of workers' rights. IBEW Local 77 and our members in Whatcom County and the remaining 8,300 stand together in full opposition of this. We ask and respectfully ask that you vote no on increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. Thank you.
The next speaker is Trevor Smith, followed by Maxford Nelson and Leora Province. Go ahead, Trevor.
Good evening, Council. My name is Trevor Smith. I'm the Political Director for Labor's Local 292, and I live on State Street in Bellingham. I'm here tonight to discuss a couple of items that the Council is looking at. First, joining our brothers and sisters, Labor's Local 292 vehemently opposes the ordinance labeled AB 2020-409, increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. Ordinance of this type have been attempted before in the state and have resulted in litigation against the public entities that have tried to enact them. We encourage the council to vote no on the ordinance. We do want you to know that we will always stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in defense of workers' rights. One thing I will say is that I do appreciate the willingness of the council members to listen to us when we bring forward our concerns. If you haven't already read it, I encourage you to read the letter that was emailed to all county council members and the executive from the Washington and Northern Idaho District Council of Laborers on letterhead from Bernard Eglitzen and Lavitt LLP, which details our objections to the proposed ordinance. The second item I'd like to speak to is encouraging the council to adopt the Cherry Point comp plan that was sent to the council from the Planning Commission. I realize that the work group is still working through the council language changes that were sent over, and we look forward to attending the meeting next week to discuss those changes. Lastly, we encourage the council to confirm Leora Province for appointment to the County Commission for salaries of elected officials. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your consideration.
The next speaker is Maxford Nelson, followed by Leora Province and Barney Smith. Go ahead, Maxford.
Good evening. My name is Maxford Nelson. I'm the Director of Labor Policy at the Freedom Foundation in Olympia. We strongly support proposed ordinance AB 2020-409 and commend the Council for considering this important good government policy. Allowing for public oversight of collective bargaining negotiations involving government agencies and tax dollars is overwhelmingly popular. In 2014, 70% of Colorado voters approved a ballot measure opening public school collective bargaining to the public. Last year, 77% of voters in Spokane voted to open up the city's negotiations with unions. And in recent years, nearly every major newspaper editorial board in Washington has endorsed collective bargaining transparency at least once. Thankfully, it's also good policy. First, personnel costs generally constitute the largest portion of municipal government budgets, which are funded by mandatory taxes and fees paid by the public. Members of the public deserve to be able to witness firsthand the collective bargaining process, which determines how their tax dollars will be spent. Second, because collective bargaining in government involves elected officials, unions maintain robust political operations and routinely boast of their ability to, quote, directly elect their bosses. Transparent bargaining helps prevent any compromising, whether actual or perceived, of government officials' ability to fairly represent the public when bargaining with private special interests that may have played a role in their election. Third, opening negotiations also allows public employees to see and evaluate for themselves their union's representation of their interests at the bargaining table. And lastly, bringing the bargaining process out from behind closed doors encourages all parties to conduct themselves professionally and reasonably, to avoid extreme or unrealistic proposals, and to reach agreement efficiently. Because of these benefits, at least 13 states, including both Oregon and Idaho, have adopted laws providing for at least some level of public oversight of collective bargaining. Here in Washington, a growing list of counties, cities, and school districts have adopted similar transparency requirements. Contrary to the arguments of its opponents, open bargaining is not illegal. While the Open Public Meetings Act exempts collective bargaining, that only means local governments are not required to bargain openly, and there's no dispute that municipal governments have the authority to be more transparent than required by the state. While there is ongoing litigation over transparency resolution adopted by Lincoln County, even a loss for the county would only mean that local governments must bargain transparency reforms with the union. And in the meantime, other jurisdictions are successfully bargaining contracts to completion in public settings. Finally, open bargaining is not by any stretch anti-union. In fact, unions selectively advocate for open bargaining when they believe it suits their interests. In 2016, a teachers union president explained how, quote, member participation is at its peak thanks to our experience with open bargaining. It's helped us bring our union back to life, change the balance of power, and build hope for our future. In sum, collective bargaining transparency is popular, effective, and legal, and the proposal before the council this evening deserves to be adopted without amendment or delay. Thank you.
The next speaker is Leora Province, followed by Barney Smith and then Randy. Go ahead, Leora.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you so much. Leora Province, 2501 West Street, Bellingham, Washington, 98225. I have been a resident of Whatcom County for nearly 40 years. This is the first time that I have seen the county look at an ordinance that essentially describes the ability to talk to workers about their rights and about their ability to negotiate over their wages, benefits, and working conditions as an extreme example of the antithesis of an open process. When you hold a single group out, as this resolution does, of all the other contracts that the county bargains, it's pretty much deemed to be arbitrary and capricious. And those things are frowned upon not only in employment law, in case law, and in law governing all manner of things that the county has to deal with and make sure that they conform with the legalities. An example, in case it's not evident, I am speaking against this resolution and this ordinance. For example, it would be like telling me that I have to allow my neighbor on the corner to come to my daughter's student parent meeting with the teacher so they can talk about how their buddy didn't get the painting contract at the elementary school. Well, I'm trying to negotiate with the teacher over my child's performance in school and is it adequate, not adequate, and what I can do to remedy it. You're putting people with no information about the rules of the road and making them part of a process that they're not a part of. Meanwhile, county employees who are in fact taxpayers are really being punitively treated by the actual introduction of this ordinance, let alone its implementation. I am asking you to vote no. This is an ordinance that is asking the county council to make Whatcom County a guinea pig for the Freedom Foundation, and I am delighted to be after the so-called Freedom Foundation member who spoke just now. Please vote no. Please support non-arbitrary and capricious behavior, and please show your workers the respect they deserve for being on the front line every day for Whatcom County. Thank you.
The next speaker is Barney Smith, followed by Randy, and then Janet McKinney. Go ahead, Barney Smith.
Hello, good evening. My name is Barney A. Smith, and I'm a resident of Whatcom County. I'm a member, a business rep, and an organizer for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 191. Thank you for allowing me to speak out against this ordinance, AB 2020-409, increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. This is an insult to all unions and workers. Where did this ordinance come from? Industry and the Planning Commission had 10 work sessions trying to hammer out a compromise about the moratorium on Cherry Point. And together, a compromise was reached. It was a breakthrough. This is how America works, together. Then this ordinance happens. Very disappointing, very confusing. Where did this come from? Because it feels like it came out of right field. Then to see Mr. Byrd, Mr. ELENBAAS, and Ms. KERSHNER's name on this ordinance, even more confusion. I thought we were working well together, and I know we still will, but this ordinance comes across extremely condescending to the great working people of Whatcom County. Trying to weaken public employees' right to bargain is an attack on not just public unions, but on all unions. This is something that appears to come from the Freedom Foundation. What's next? You're going to stop just there? Why not go after all public contracts? Let's get rid of prevailing wage. Let's put in no overtime pay. Let's put all this in there. Put this, put that. When's it going to stop? Now, I am speaking out against this ordinance. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate about my members that I represent here in Whatcom County. I'm also passionate about doing the right thing. So I would like to finish by apologizing for some of my remarks. If they offended you, I'm sorry. I was just flabbergasted by this ordinance because this is not a dog whistle, but a bullhorn to union members and workers to be aware. This is how right to work starts. It starts in these small counties with ordinances like this attacking public employee unions. So I ask you please to vote down. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to voice my opinion. Good night.
Next speaker is Randy, followed by Janet McKinney and Brian Estes. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, my name is Randy Ambule. Good evening, members of the County Council. My name is Randy Ambule, and I'm a resident of Birch Bay in Whatcom County's 5th District. I wanted to speak to you tonight about the Freedom Foundation's increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations ordinance that is being proposed by some of the County Council members. I'm opposed to this ordinance for a number of reasons and urge the Council to reject it. The name of the ordinance is misleading, implying that there is currently no transparency in the county contract negotiations, which is not true. Employees need to be aware of how they are being represented in their collective bargaining contract negotiations, and the system for that transparency already exists in their labor organizations. Whatcom County taxpayers already have the right to public information, and public oversight is already available through the County Council and other elected governing bodies, making this ordinance unnecessary. This appears to be a solution looking for a problem that is being put forth by the anti-union so-called Freedom Foundation. There have been no findings of problems, legal irregularities, or improper behaviors in the decades of collective bargaining between the county and its workers and their representatives. Washington's Open Public Meetings Act specifically carves out collective bargaining sessions for a good reason. It's because these negotiations are best held when the parties have equal footing and are able to engage in free and frank conversations and problem solving. State and county and municipal governments routinely negotiate behind closed doors. They do so, for example, to consider the purchase of real estate or to review the performance of publicly bid contracts. That's because public knowledge of such considerations would likely cause an increased price and interference from interested third parties beyond the general public. The same is true of contract collective bargaining involving public employees. Once negotiations are exposed to the public, it becomes easier for third parties to interfere in and politicize the work of coming to a common agreement. The public currently has the opportunity to discuss and weigh in on any tentative contract agreement that is the product of these negotiations and to urge public officials to accept or reject that agreement and return to the bargaining table. That protects the public's interest without hampering the ability of both sides to reach an agreement. If adopted, this will likely subject Whatcom County taxpayers to costly litigation over its creating unfair labor practice of open bargaining. It will unfairly target county employees who have a collective bargaining agreement and suppress workers' freedom to join in a union and have a voice at work. One of the Freedom Foundation's main purposes appears to be to push measures that are designed to undermine workers' rights and weaken the ability of unions. Whatcom County and Washington State do not want or need this sort of anti-worker, anti-union garbage. Please vote to reject this proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Randy, could you please spell your last name for the record?
Yes, that's A-M-B-U-E-H-L.
The next speaker is Janet McKinney, followed by Brian Estes and Zachary Graham.
Say that again, Kathy, you broke up.
The next speaker is Janet McKinney, then Brian Estes and Zachary Graham. looks like Janet no longer has a hand raised, so we'll go to Brian Estes. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm Brian Estes. I'm a real estate broker here in Bellingham. Thank you, council, for taking the time to hear a public comment on the proposed ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair bargaining. I oppose this strongly. I oppose this because the county doesn't open negotiations with corporations or issues of litigation to the public. Why should they target frontline workers? Opening bargaining robs workers of their freedom to collectively bargain for fair wages, for safety at work, and for health benefits. And this ordinance, as many previous speakers mentioned, would entangle the county in costly litigation. And I think at a time when the Whatcom County Council budget, there's going to be a lot of belt tightening that will likely happen, and this would be a cost that would be easy to avoid. This is a solution in search of a problem. There have been no findings of problems, legal irregularities, or improper bargaining negotiations that Whatcom County has entered into with their workers and their representatives. So for those reasons mentioned above, I urge everyone on the council to vote no on this proposed ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Go back to Janet McKinney. Go ahead, Janet.
Hello, I'm Janet McKinney, and I'm asking you to oppose the ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contracts. Many of my opposition to this ordinance has already been stated, but I am particularly alarmed that this ordinance has come from an organization outside Whatcom County and right out of the Freedom Foundation's playbook, as everybody else has already stated. Why are we letting an outside organization dictate our community values? Another aspect of this ordinance is that some people want oversight of workers, but do nothing when it comes to contracts with other workers and businesses. This is totally unfair. I have never heard of any problems with the collective bargaining process that would promote bringing this ordinance up, except for some people on the council who seem to be against workers and unions. Thank you, and please consider voting no. Thank you.
The next speaker is Zachary Graham. Go ahead, Zachary.
Good evening, folks. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this meeting. My name is Zachary Graham. I'm a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Number 191. I'm speaking tonight to oppose the ordinance AB 2020-409, increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations. I'm speaking because as a union member, I want to represent all organized labor and stand in solidarity with all the folks who have come before me at this meeting and countless other instances of labor needing to join together to make sure that their voice is heard at the bargaining table. As I look through the notes on this ordinance, what strikes me is that this is a solution that is looking for a problem. There have been no findings of problems, legal irregularities, or improper behaviors in the decades of collective negotiations that the county has entered into with its workers and their representative. This ordinance only applies to workers, and as other people have noted, it has no bearing on other negotiations that the county is doing. I hope that I can add my voice to the chorus here tonight that's urging you folks to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you all very much for your time.
The next speaker is Eddie Uri, followed by Steve Gary, and then Bill Angel. Go ahead, Eddie.
Hi,
Go
this
ahead,
is
Eddie.
Eddie. Hi, my name is Eddie Uri. I am the Climate and Energy Policy Manager at Resources for Sustainable Communities. And as you know, our mission is to protect the health and safety of people and ecosystems in Northwest Washington. And how does this issue connect with our mission, one might ask? And I will speak in partly as an individual who is not a member of a union, but frankly, I may wish that I were. But we can recognize the indispensable importance of organized labor in protecting the rights and interests of workers in this county, and particularly our public employees who in Whatcom County being one of the top 5 employers in Whatcom County with over 900 public employees who are every day playing an indispensable role through the Public Works Department, Planning and Development Services, Parks and Rec, our Health Department, and several law and justice departments. The work they do is indispensable. And so we're speaking about this as a basic issue of public interest. What's in the best issue of the public, those who reside in this county, those who depend every day on the services that are provided and executed by nearly 1,000 people that are employed, and yes, their compensation and benefits being paid for by our tax dollars, recognizing that our elected officials do play an important role, but these are the folks who actually do the work every day. And to expose them to an inconsistent, expose them to rules that don't exist for any other private sector, collective bargaining agreement negotiations, frankly, it's against the interests of both the workers and the ability of the unions that represent them to protect their rights, their interests, and security. It's also against the interests of Whatcom County. It's just unnecessary. It's a misguided approach to address, if there's any problems that are perceived by council members in outcomes of negotiations that are happening. Perhaps there are other ways to take that up, but this is just, as it's been said before, and better than I can by dozens of other people here tonight, this just needs to be voted down. This is frankly just unacceptable, and I hope you will vote no tonight. And again, though, thank you for your consideration of all the comments and voices here tonight, and for your service to our communities.
The next speaker is Steve Gary, followed by Bill Angel, and I'll try to pronounce this. It's Channon. Go ahead, Steve.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. I was a little late getting that unmute button. I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity to speak on this ordinance that would supposedly provide transparency in labor negotiations for public workers in Whatcom County. I am a retired refinery employee. I'm a retired president of the United Steelworkers Local 12-591. Representing refinery workers. I now serve on the executive committee of the Washington State Blue-Green Alliance. As many have stated tonight, this ordinance has nothing to do with transparency. This is a page right out of the playbook of dark money forces in this country who have no intention of seeking transparency for beneficial reason. They're really about division. They're about intimidation. Their ultimate goals are small government, defunding government. And so this is an attack on the common good. This is an attack on public interest and all of those who benefit from the common good. Public workers are essential workers for the common good. Every citizen of Whatcom County who calls 911 for a first responder is harmed by this ordinance. Everyone who expects roads and bridges to be safe is harmed. Everyone who needs clean water, clean air is harmed potentially. Even those county employees that help us ensure free and fair elections, that help manage and audit public revenue so that it's used efficiently and effectively. Everyone who relies upon that is harmed. And of course, this is just the first step. If they get their foot in the door, the very next step may well be attacking teachers, public schools, and every other institution that's funded by public dollars being used to serve the public good. I would encourage council members to vote this thing down as it's clearly a present danger to the best interests of citizens in Whatcom County. I thank you again for this time and for your work in protecting those interests of the citizens of Whatcom County. Thank you.
Next is Bill Angel. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, thank you. My name is Bill Angel. I'm a resident of Bellingham, Washington, and an employee at the Whatcom County Health Department in the Environmental Health, Public Health section. I'm a shop steward for that group of employees, and I've been the negotiator several times for our contract negotiations. And I must say I've always appreciated the frank and open discussions and our ability to come to reasoned and fair resolution to our concerns and differences, and come to contract agreement over many years. And we haven't found any, other than mild misinterpretations for the most part, any conflicts in this process. And we think it's efficient and effective for the county. We think that this ordinance proposal that poses to increase transparency will stymie our ability to have those frank and open discussions, and potentially serve to cost the county considerable money because these are, shown in courts even to be unfair labor practices in Washington State and the Public Employee Relations Commission. And we think this is a working program as we have it, and working with the health department to protect our community during this COVID outbreak. I just get more and more chances to see the quality work that we have, and appreciate the benefits that we've come to negotiate over the years. And we think this is going to be, if this were passed, would be an undue burden on that process to keep our workers compensated and keep the county served with the best possible representation in their public employees. So I encourage all county council members to vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
The next speaker is Shannon, and followed by Protex 17. I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hey, everybody. My name is Hanan Suarez, and I'm living here in Whatcom County. And I want to urge the council to vote no against this right-wing ordinance. I myself am a union member. I'm with the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 3937. And I'm here in solidarity with my fellow union brothers and sisters against this despicable ordinance. I think working people have been going through enough in this time in COVID-19, in just all the different ways that we know how people are struggling right now. And the fact that you have this right wing organization that is backed by corporate interests who are deliberately attacking and disenfranchise working people is disgraceful. And they should be ashamed of themselves for even putting this before us. Anyways, I'm here, in solidarity. An injury to one is an injury to all. And I strongly urge this council to vote against this right-wing agenda. Thank you.
The next speaker is listed as Protect 17. If you could state your full name for the record, please.
Thank you, Council. Sorry, my name is Alexis Young, and I am a union representative with Professional and Technical Employees Local 17, doing business as Protect 17. I represent members in the Whatcom County Public Health Department. I find it pretty compelling from the testimony presented this evening that the council would be extremely irresponsible to adopt this ordinance. Of note, the only individual to testify in support of this ordinance this evening was Maxford Nelson from the Freedom Foundation. He probably even wrote the ordinance for those council members that proposed it. The title of this proposed ordinance is as misleading as the Freedom Foundation themselves. They aren't about freedom. They are about taking away the freedoms that labor has fought for. This is not about transparency. It's about defunding public sector jobs and threatening the quality of life for our community. This is not about fairness. It's a direct attack on represented workers. I ask you to vote no on the increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations ordinance. Thank you.
The next speaker is listed as Mrs. Chuthoff. Go ahead. Please state your name, full name for the record.
Hi, I'm Michael Studoff, and I'm a long-term 32-year-old resident of this county. And I first want to speak up against the ordinance that's going to put a legal barrier and costly litigation setback to all unions. I can't believe this is even coming on our on your radar at this time. Please do support all the hardworking citizens of our county. I also want to speak up against y'all's decision with the capital improvement plan to go ahead and push forward with a 95 million mega jail and a $15 million sheriff office. It has been turned down by our citizens many times, and you have promised us oversight before even doing this and full transparency, but that is not what's happening. Promised us public participation, but you have sidelined all powers of the groups that you have made and given all powers to the technical advisory boards, as well as expanded the seats and put union members of the county jail on that union to swamp all participation and citizen power. I'm really appalled by all these moves, and I really wish that y'all would not push forward with a jail that's going to require us all to vote down your new tax and debt plan to finance this jail. Please do not vote for this union busting legislation tonight, and thank you.
There are no other hands raised at this time. If anybody else would like to speak during the open session tonight, if you could please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, or if you're joining by phone, please dial *9 on your phone. We do have one more speaker, two more. We'll go starting with Heather Lee, followed by Stacy Martin. Go ahead, Heather.
Hello, my name is Heather Lee. I am a delegate with the Northwest Washington Central Labor Council, and
I'm representing the International Brotherhood of Teamsters in Bellingham, Washington. I work at UPS. And so I'm really disturbed by this proposal because just anything that would weaken unions through defunding them or devalidating them is a direct threat to people who are union workers, because in my whole entire adult life, I have worked all these minimum wage jobs. I couldn't support myself, even buy food or shelter or anything. And this is the first time in my life I've been able to make a living and have insurance. So anything that's trying to devalidate that or threatening the funding of that is a direct threat to me being able to make a living and support my family. So I'm really concerned about that. And so I am, the language that's in this proposal is a threat directly to just the funding and the validation of unions. And so I am asking my representatives to oppose that. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
The next speaker is Stacy Martin. Go ahead, Stacy.
Hello, I'm here. Everybody hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
My name's Stacy Martin. I'm business manager of Laborers Local 292. We cover Snohomish, Skagit, Whatcom, Island, and San Juan counties, and a third of my membership lives up in Whatcom County. I'll be honest, I really appreciate all my brothers and sisters that have got on here today and spoke out against this ordinance. This is a direct attack not only on the public workers of Whatcom County, but all union members as a whole. I'm glad to see the turnout tonight and the statements made. In less than 2 weeks after this ordinance was put out, we now have Maxford Nelson showing up in Whatcom County. Openly said he's with the Freedom Foundation. So he backed everything that we said, that this language was crafted by, supported by, and promoted by. I strongly urge the council tonight to unanimously vote this down. Whatcom County doesn't deserve this kind of stuff in its county. It doesn't deserve the kind of actions and the stuff that the Freedom Foundation does. And again, I want to thank you guys all for your time. Thanks for listening to all of us. We all appreciate it. And I'm really hoping it's a unanimous no vote on this ordinance. Thank you.
The next speaker is listed as Chromebook 31D5. Go ahead, please.
My name is David Brune. I live in Nooksack, Washington. Lived there for quite some time. I'm a member of the IBEW Local 191. I strongly oppose this ordinance. I believe that it's a blatant attack on unionism. It's to discredit and impede any collective bargaining agreements or any collective bargaining processes. And it is not right. This is not Wisconsin, and you three who put it forward are not Scott Walker. I'm done.
There are no other hands raised at this time. If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your hand virtually at this time. You can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon or dialing *9 if you're joining by phone. We do have another speaker, Mary Steedham. Go ahead, Mary.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me? This
Yes,
is Marcus
go ahead,
D.
please.
Stidham. Hi, this is Marcus D. Stidham. I'm using Mary's device because we're having connectivity issues out in Sudden Valley tonight. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is Marcus D. Stidham. I'm the homeless advocate on the Homeless Strategies Work Group. Unanimously put by there, all of you, and I thank you so much for your trust and in that. And I've been working really hard this summer and been really distracted with camp cleanups issues with the city of Bellingham. But I want to remind you that the Homeless Strategies Work Group is an advisory body, and that my role there, that unanimously put me there for, was to try to give you the very best advice I can. And I've been consistent in my advice. We need emergency shelters immediately. I've been trying to get the city to come along with stuff, and I think that you'll find that probably, if we really were to examine it, the city's current camp cleanups policy is exacerbating the homelessness problem, and they're asking you to clean it all up. I'm asking you to help me. Let's get some emergency shelters up. We're long since overdue. Since COVID-19, doubly so. And so I am encouraging all council members to please try to come forward with an answer. There's lovely shelters available, pallet shelters. They're called palletshelter.com. And I want you guys to please really look into pallet shelters. They're made down in Everett. I think when I last spoke with them, they had 300 in stock. We could have emergency tiny home encampments in different locations up and around Bellingham, if you can get cooperation there, or just outside the city limits. And Homes Now would love to help you with that. But this is not a Homes Now thing. This is a Whatcom County thing. This is a Bellingham thing. This is a humanitarian thing. This is promoting the general welfare. And that is what you all took your oath to. And I encourage you to please engage this and get emergency funding moving toward emergency sheltering immediately and help Bellingham out. They really need your help. Thanks.
There are no other speakers at this time.
Okay, so we will close the open public session and resume our agenda. And we said we were going to put that item that so many folks just testified about next. So under other items, AB 2020-409, which is an ordinance increasing community oversight and transparency to establish fair contract negotiations, pages 95 through 97. I guess I would rely on the sponsors and of this legislation to, I guess, get us started.
I'm going to move to withdraw, and there'll be discussion. And as the primary person introducing this, I'd like to go first.
But don't we need a motion? So is the motion to withdraw?
So if you want to make it, is that what you're making,
Tyler?
Tyler?
And then I would like to be in the queue to speak about the motion, but we is the motion to withdraw? Let's be clear about that. And is there a second?
Yes, the motion is to withdraw.
I'll second
it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to withdraw. Discussion, Councilmember Donovan.
Very,
yeah. Okay.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay, we'll let Tyler speak first because he's the maker of the motion. I'm sorry, Todd.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to take a second just because this is obviously a popular topic, and because I think that there's a lot of miscommunication that's kind of taken place here. And so I'd like to address some of the things that I've heard and some of the things that I've written in regards to this. I'm going to start by telling you, I personally copied this document from Spokane County. And I was looking for this as a topic. I'd heard about it from another county. And when I Googled it, Spokane County came up. You'll see that that's the case. If you look at the resolutions versus the ordinance, Spokane County is a commissioner county, is my understanding. So as a resolution, that's the equivalent of an ordinance here. A resolution here is basically a recommendation that has no authority. So I updated that document to change everything to an ordinance instead of a resolution, but apparently I missed one of those spots. I also wanted to be able to, well, I want to say that, I appreciate Ben and Kathy's support on this document, but I sent this to them after I updated the document and asked them to co-introduce this with me and co-sponsor it with me. And for that, they didn't have any context to where it came from or what it was. I will tell you, I didn't know where it originated as well. I took it from that other county. I read through it. It sounded like a good ordinance to me. And it sounded like a good thing for a number of reasons. And I'd like to address that, the reason why I did that and the reason why I was looking for this. If any of you, and some of you have, you've seen a lot of the council meetings over the last few years that I've been a part of. It's really important to me that people come from both sides and work on a topic together. I think it's incredibly hard to find those kind of situations in which you have people who are on the left and people on the right that they agree on the same thing, especially today. I mean, everything's pulling us so much further apart that it's just incredible that we can't even have families that dine together. And so when you find an issue where you see both sides saying, hey, this is important to us, I looked at it as an opportunity to do something that would bring people together. And obviously, everyone in this call knows that this has been an issue that conservatives have been passionate about. The reason that they've had that passion, we can speculate or debate on, but it has been something that they've wanted to see. But what we've also seen is individuals and organizations such as Black Lives Matter that have come together and said, hey, this is important to us as well. And the documentation and the points that they've put out have said a lot of things, but one of them specifically called for a seat at the table to actually take part in those negotiations. It wasn't just a matter of sitting in and listening and seeing the negotiation part, but it was actually being there and being able to engage. And I figured that that was too far and not something that people would be interested in. And so to me, when I read this document, I read it as they don't get that opportunity. What they would get is the opportunity to listen in and hear only the conversations between the two parties, not the private conversations that go on between each side individually, just the back and forth. And when I look at that, I think of that as any other organization. And so if I was a private corporation, I would have a board of shareholders. And that board of shareholders would be privy to the union contract negotiations that our company was having. If I went to court, that open court trial and battle that would be recorded, people can sit in actively and watch that trial. And all of the documentation has to actually be introduced to the court and is then open as well. I look at it as far as public contracts that we have with private companies through an RFP process. And for me, I see the same thing. You have an RFP that gets issued. There's a very specific criteria. The committee that sets down all of their scorecards, their emails, their conversations are all open in public record in real time. And so I didn't see what I'm now hearing. And I'm not saying this because I don't believe that it exists or because I believe that it's made up. I'm saying this because I want you to understand where it came from. It didn't come from a place of union busting. It didn't come from a place of wanting to do harm by any means. And I think that's important for everyone to know. No one here, I can tell you in our discussions about it, has ever said anything to that extent. It has always been about supporting the transparency of people. And it's been about that because of some of the things that we have experienced and seen that I won't go into. And because that's what people have asked for, unanimously what we're hearing. So I want you to know that first and foremost. I'll tell you, in addition to that, moving forward, the reason I'm pulling this out or asking to withdraw it isn't because I don't support it. When I read it, I didn't see the harm, but I still support the principle and the end goals and the fact that the community wants it. But what I have always valued is conversation and working together to come to an end conclusion, and hearing from the unions that are private and coming forward, and the public sector unions as well that are participating tonight. I understand that there's some areas in here that you have deep concern and that concern is relevant. And what happened was there was a couple of union representatives that have approached me individually and said, hey, Tyler, here's the specific issues that we believe that this will cause or that we believe that this will lead to.
You muted yourself.
Thanks. I don't want to see that this ordinance cause any damage to anybody. And so the same as everything else, I'm using that as an opportunity to sit down and have those conversations so that I can look at it and say, hey, is there an end road in which conservatives and progressives have a passionate issue, and the unions that are concerned about it, can we all work together to create something different from this document that would actually achieve all of those goals? Maybe we can, maybe we can't, but I don't like the idea of pushing something forward that doesn't have that input and that level of discussion and thought. And so that's my rationale for withdrawing it, and that's my rationale for including it. So I hope you can appreciate that and understand that if you know me or met me, that it's coming from a sincere spot. So thank you for the time.
Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, I'm muted. I'm not sure Mr. Byrd read his own ordinance. He just said it sounded like a good ordinance and that the community wanted it. So I guess I will speak in favor of the motion to withdraw this. I'll try to keep it shorter than that. And full disclosure, I'm in a union that makes working conditions better for part-time faculty. My mom negotiated for union folks, and the retirements are better. So if you want to say I'm biased, there you go. But I'll echo some of the people. There's nothing in this ordinance that identifies a problem, and so much damage has been done by proposing this. We have a history of collective bargaining, productive collective bargaining, not as the proponents of this claim, secret deal making. And members of the council who proposed this thing, at least some of them have been on, we've approved contracts have been bargained. And I don't recall anybody ever raising objections about, quote, secret deals, which is what's mentioned in this thing. So, I mean, so what's the problem? Are we saying that people are secretly overpaid, or that they're getting some kind of lavish benefits, or that there's misconduct in the Public Works Department or the Parks Department that can't properly be investigated? That's what this ordinance is saying. And you know, the damage is done by throwing this thing out here. I mean, it's disrespectful to county employees who've worked hard and have negotiated in good faith. It's an insult to people that, you know, took furloughs and you know, helped us with the budget crisis during the COVID situation. It's an insult to people in human resources who bargain professionally and successfully, not secretly or nefariously. So, you know, this is about transparency. I mean, I'm not going to accept this like it sounds like a good ordinance idea here. It's a bad ordinance. It's about weakening unions. It's about a radical right, Koch brothers, anti-union freedom foundation. If you could Google this and find it in Spokane, you'll Google this and you'll find the Freedom Foundation fingerprints all over it. It's not about Whatcom County. It's not about transparency. It's part of a statewide partisan Republican radical right campaign to weaken unions. And it's irresponsible. And we're withdrawing it, so I guess I don't need to get into too many details about that. But like, if you just think about what you're doing here, you're throwing a hand grenade into a well-functioning bargaining process. There's so much stuff this would open up that we put into play that I don't think it's been thought out at all. So no, it doesn't sound like a good ordinance. It's not good for the community. It's not what people want. So yeah, withdraw it. But you just don't get to throw a hand grenade out there and say, oops.
Councilmember ELENBAAS.
Sometimes I think if you want to know what's wrong with politics, just listen to Councilmember Donovan go on and on sometimes. I'll explain why I said I'd put my name on this. And it has nothing to do with union busting. I was endorsed by numerous unions. It has nothing to do with, you know, coming after the blue collar worker. I wear a blue collar every day. To me, it had something to do with the county. The county's funded by taxpayers. It's their money. And everything we do in politics, we're supposed to have as an open public meeting. And so when the county's negotiating with the public's money, I thought it made sense for that to be out in the open. And I got to applaud the unions here for how well they coordinated and sent all these emails. But I guess from my perspective, wow, your mind's really wandered on it as far as where it could go, where it would go, and where it came from. I never heard of this Maxwell guy from the Freedom Foundation. I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't. Some of the stuff he said made some sense, though. But I also do hear what the union's concerns are. However, I'm not so. I guess what I'm thinking is maybe I do want to hear what's going on in these meetings. If having them open to the public is going to destroy their jobs or their ability to make money. And I guess my advice would be, I think there's a lot more issues that come from this council that will affect the amount of money you put in your pocket every day than having people be able to listen in on a union negotiation. So if Tyler wants to withdraw it, that's fine. We can withdraw it.
Councilmember Brown.
Sorry. First off, had we got to a vote on this, I was going to vote no on this for many reasons. Not the least of which is if you go to the Freedom Foundation's own website, in February this year, they appeared before the IRS arguing for the right to privacy over who donates to their organization. In other words, they feel they need to have privacy in their operations for the people who fund them, and those people are funding them to remove the privacy from the negotiations in the unions. So I'll leave everybody with the irony of that position, but I would not have supported this if we were going to take it to a vote.
Councilmember Kershner.
I just wanted to weigh in here since my name is on it. To be honest with all of the speakers tonight, I had to Google the Freedom Foundation to find out what you were talking about because I've never heard of them. And I had a chance to look up their website and see a little bit about what they are. I'm going to do a little more research on them and see if I can figure out what it is where the connection is there. So that being said, I agreed to support Tyler in this ordinance because all summer long we have received emails and phone calls and requests from political activists to open up the process with how we fund our law enforcement. One of the requests was to put community oversight into our contract negotiations. And like Tyler, I think that having community members sitting in contract negotiations as part of the process was a little bit too far. But when Tyler proposed this, I thought, well, that might be a compromise that would meet the community members, quite frankly, demands that we do something about, defunding the police and the racial tensions that have been going on around the nation. I would say that I, like Councilmember ELENBAAS, am quite impressed with the outpouring of non-support for this ordinance. And had I taken a moment to reach out and talk to some of you and gotten some of this information ahead of time, I would have had some second thoughts on supporting this exact ordinance. I appreciate you all coming tonight. I certainly didn't mean to be part of a bomb throwing endeavor, as Councilmember Donovan suggests. In fact, I think 2 weeks ago, this was on the introduction items, and I think it was voted 7-0 to introduce this. So there was certainly an opportunity for anybody at the time that had some reservations about it to express their opinion and vote no. So I will support withdrawing it, and again, appreciate you guys coming on. And I do want to also reiterate what Tyler said, and that is that I listened to all of your comments tonight, and I think that sometimes the dots were connected very, very loosely. There was no intention to bust your unions. There's no intention to threaten your jobs. None of that was part of this. There's no right-wing conspiracy as suggested. I don't know who the Koch brothers are. So whatever their connection to this might be, Councilman Donovan, you can maybe educate me later. But we're just really trying to meet conflicting needs in the community, and this job is not easy. And I hope that you guys out there, I'm talking to the union members that spoke up tonight, I hope that you guys can give us a little grace on this. Nobody is trying to harm you or your job. Thank you.
Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, okay. I will suppress disbelief when the chairperson of the Whatcom County Republican Party says that she doesn't know who the Koch brothers are or the connection to the Freedom Foundation. But if you do want to look up more stuff on the Freedom Foundation, the Koch brothers are billionaires from Wichita who fund anti-union campaigns all across the country, who think that working people in unions are a disease. The foundation is also funded by the SCAFE folks. They've been found to be in violation by the Washington State Supreme Court of our public disclosure rules. So yeah, I urge you to look into who they are.
So I'd just like to first say that thank you as well to all the folks that came out and testified tonight. Your message was spot on for me. Had this come to a vote, like Mr. Brown said, I would have been a definite hard no. I don't believe that there's any constructive outcome for that this ordinance would have brought about. So I'll leave it at that. I was definitely a hard no. I'm going to let Councilmember Frazee go. She hasn't spoke yet.
Yes, I want to thank everyone also. Like most of you spending, you spent most of your weekend on the phone with us and, making your voices heard. And I would have voted no on this also. And when we do talk about, transparency and things like that, we, making sure we are going in the right direction with, like the Racial and Equity Commission, things like that, and oversight and community involvement is more the direction we need to go. And just like we have executive session for county council members, there's reasons for that. And I think, that's what the union negotiations are for. So, yeah, I would have voted no also. And thanks for all your voices and your phone calls and your emails, and appreciate it.
Executive Studio, then Councilmember Byrd. We can't hear you, Sat Paul.
I got all the emails as you guys got it. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me get closer.
Yeah, get a little closer.
Okay, so I got all those emails as well and several phone calls. I just wanted to say, I appreciate everybody talking and Mr. Byrd giving his reasons. As we heard that people don't know about Koch brothers or they don't know about Freedom Foundation, I just want for everybody's knowledge, all the people who are listening, that there's another organization called American Legislative Exchange Council, in short, ELEC. And this is a right-wing organization where Freedom Foundation also participates. They take young people, young Republican people, and they make templates for all kinds of ordinances, laws, and they start from a city level, county level, and state level. They teach them how the talking point, how to present and change rules and regulations, and this is one of them. This is what they teach, and they take very pride of it. And our senator, Mr. Erickson, has been vice president of that organization. So, like people saying that, oh, we don't know about them, this is pretty well-known organizations working not only 1, 2, 3, 5 decades.
Councilmember Byrd.
Thanks. This is tough. I ran for office for one reason. It wasn't to be the politician or to play politics or this kind of stuff. And it frustrates me because I think it's what's wrong with our country right now. I mean, we're attaching things and bringing things up that aren't relevant to make them sound worse than what they are. If that was our intent, we'd be trying to ram it through, and I would have introduced it at the last minute, and it was something entirely different. I mean, there's a lot of games I could have played with that. I could have learned half of them from Todd here in the last 3 years, but I didn't because I don't believe in that. What I believe in is talking together. What I believe in is putting these things out there through a process and listening to each other and letting a process be the starting point for a discussion so that everyone is notified and on the same page and looking at the same documents when they have those conversations and can actually meet and speak to each other on the same page at the same level. Do I think that throwing a hand grenade and walking away? Absolutely not. Is it starting a conversation? Yes. Can I admit when I'm wrong? Yeah, I can admit when I'm wrong too. Did I put something out here without fully understanding what the ramifications might be to everyone or misconstruing some of them? It sounds like I did. But I'm also maybe young enough at this point to still be willing to change and to listen and to hear what other people have to say. And that's the reason that I was willing to pull this out when I heard about the misconceptions or the concerns more specifically. And the reason that I'm willing to sit down at a table and have those conversations, just like I was when Councilmember Brown put forward the ordinance earlier this year for union trainees. Listen, everyone here can decide for themselves what the point and the reasoning is and what you believe and what you don't believe. At the end of the day, if something like this ever concerns you or you ever see something that comes from me, and I would say probably the same for Kathy and Ben, that you're worried about or that you dislike or that you think needs to be updated or poses risk, call. I'm happy to sit down and have that conversation with you. I'm happy to sit down and drink coffee with you. I will sit on the back deck, even if it means I'm 6 feet apart and wearing a mask for 3 hours, 3 times a week. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we have the conversation and that I can understand where you're coming from and why, so that something bad doesn't happen or I don't do something that's unintended. None of us here are experts on everything. We understand very small pieces of what we're good at and the experience that we bring. That there's no possible way that we could see everything or catch everything or understand every angle or effect that it's going to have. And so I think it's important that we do hear people and listen to them and be open to those conversations. And again, that's the reason that I'm pulling this out, or requesting for it, and nothing else. But thanks for your time.
Councilmember Brown, and then Councilmember ELENBAAS.
Yeah, I've just sent the council 2 links. On February 7th, the Freedom Foundation complained that big unions were big labor remains the biggest foe to government transparency. And then 7 days later, they met with the IRS trying to shield the identity of their donors. So if you want to know who the Freedom Foundation is, let's just say that they live by a double standard. And if anybody in the audience wants a copy of the email, just send it to me and I'll send you the links.
Councilmember ELENBAAS.
I'm just gonna, I feel like my door's open to people who want to have a open and honest discussion about things, but I'll give you a hint. If you're gonna make social media posts and make accusations that it's a right-wing conspiracy tied to white supremacists, I'm probably going to stop listening to you because I'm not interested in hearing that.
Okay, Mr. Donovan.
Yeah, and I'm just responding to Mr. Byrd. You didn't reach out. I sent multiple emails internally to council voicing the exact concerns that I brought up here. This is not coming out of left field. You could have withdrawn this earlier. The comment that you could learn something about me, quote, ramming things through at the last minute, I assume applies to the 3 or 4 year process that we're going through with the Cherry Point amendments. So this proposal was an insult. You just couldn't go another couple of minutes without an insult. Just saying.
Okay, you guys are gonna have to take this outside, I think.
Dana, are you on the call?
And I like Tyler. I just get Dana
is on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Dana, can I withdraw this once it's been introduced personally?
No, it's been accepted by the council, so it needs to be voted to withdraw by the council.
Okay. That was my understanding based on our conversation earlier when I called you, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone else was on the same page. Thank you.
Councilmember ELENBAAS.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out to Councilmember Donovan, was the fact that when we introduced this 2 weeks ago, it then belonged to the body, and Councilmember Byrd couldn't have pullen it back. So it had to come forward once we introduced it. And I think Councilmember Kershner's right. I think it got voted 7-0 to introduce. So if you saw a problem with it 2 weeks ago, I guess I think you're really enjoying the bee's nest that got stirred up, because quite frankly, a lot of the talking points that I've heard today were the same things that I saw in your emails. And I didn't read your emails with a tone of helpfulness, and I don't hear your comments tonight in the tone of helpfulness either.
Sounds like a good segue to vote on the motion to withdraw from the agenda. Any last constructive comments?
Yeah, vote yes is to pull the item, not to approve it.
Correct. To vote yes is to pull it, and may it never ever see the light of day again. Okay, are we ready to vote? Go ahead, Kathy, call the roll, please.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Double yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Now we will go back and start with the consent agenda from finance.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Let's see here. The first item on our agenda is AB 2020-423. Request authorization from the county executive to enter into an interlocal agreement between Whatcom County and Western Washington University to employ eligible students participating in federal off-campus work-study programs.
Tyler, this is consent agenda. You can do all these at once if you'd like.
Well, you're right. I still need to read all 4 of them, right? Just move the, all right. I always get them backwards, apologize. All right, I moved the consent agenda. They all passed 3-0 in committee. I so move.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on that motion? Yes, Mr. Byrd.
This program that I was reading in earlier, the Western Washington University program with students, I mentioned this in committee, but I think the only ones there are usually us. And so I want to bring it up here too. I really value this program, and I really appreciate staff working and bringing this together, and the health department's team identifying this and making it happen. To me, when I look at this program, it says that we're saving a ton of money and that we're helping young kids and students to get that level of expertise and career experience that is valuable to them and helps move them forward too. And so it solves a lot of boxes for me, or checks a lot of boxes for me. And it's something that I don't see a ton of, but that I really like. And that's creative solutions that come forward and solve multiple goals at once. And so thank you to those people that worked on this, and thank you to the ones that brought it forward. I hope that we see more things like this in the future.
Other discussion on the motion? Okay, please call the roll for the consent agenda.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Consent agenda passes unanimously.
Great. Next item was the AB 2020-409. That was just discussed and not a part of the Finance Committee. So we will jump over that and move to the next item, which is AB 2020-394. It's request authorization for the county executive to enter into an interagency agreement between Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District and Puget Sound Partnership for coordination of the Whatcom County Local Integrating Organization, LIO, in the amount of $125,000. Council acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control District Board of Supervisors. It was pages 49 through 82 in the packet. This was passed 3-0 in committee, and I so move.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Nope.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
That passes 6-1 with Councilmember ELENBAAS opposed.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is AB 2020-424. It's request permission for the county executive and the county council to enter into a joint funding agreement between the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District, FCZD, and the United States Geological Survey, USGS, council acting as the FCZD Board of Supervisors, pages 88 through 94 in the packet. That also passed in committee 3-0, and I so move.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes. That passes unanimously.
Ben, you want to do this or you want me to do this?
Oh, I got it. AB 2020-421, discussion and council motion to approve the public participation plan for Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Amendments, pages 274 through 296. This passed, or we voted to recommend approval 3-0 in committee, Planning and Development Committee.
And that was the amended version.
Yes, and the amendments that were made were to change language from planning and development to Whatcom County. I move for approval.
Yeah, you're moving that for approval. Okay. Discussion. Mr. Byrd.
Thanks. I should have asked this earlier. Is there anyone actually here from staff to answer questions related to this?
I don't think so. Councilmember Byrd, this is Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive.
Sorry, Tyler. What I heard is, yeah, Tyler, I'm here.
That's why I reluctantly answered your question.
Perfect. Tyler, there's a list of items on here, and I'm curious how the list, as far as priority and when they get done, is defined. And so if I'm looking at this document and on page 283, under docketed amendment requests, there is a specific item for wind farms. That's been docketed in the past. It's something that I'm interested in having moved forward as far as a conversation to make these happen. How do we prioritize that? Is that just through our annual docketing process, or is it also in this document? Or and if not, how are we selecting what gets done next?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I believe it's on the annual docketing process. And that would be when we review that, which is in February or March of every year. I can confirm with Director Personius and give you an email, but that is my understanding. Looks like Councilmember ELENBAAS might want to add to that.
Yes, right up above the red writing, it says, as with statutory requirements in the previous section, this list will be updated on an annual basis. Nailed it, Schroeder.
Okay, I knew we were adding onto the list, but I wasn't sure about how that priority, is it in the order D1, D2, D3, or is that just the order that they're listed? You probably, yeah. Okay, ask Mark tomorrow.
Councilmember Donovan. Unmute.
I hit the wrong button. Yeah, I've been kind of nudging PDS about the wind farm thing and where that's going. And I think Mark said it's going to be on the Planning Commission agenda soon. It's been taking a long time.
Any other discussion on the, oh, go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to say I'll follow up with Mark and get back to council in regards to the status of that one specifically.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, please call the roll.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes,
Tyler Byrd,
Yes.
that passes unanimously. Okay, we're on to council appointments to boards and commissions and committees. The first one up is the council appointments, which is AB 2020-362. The appointment to the Climate Impact Advisory Committee. The applicants are Stevan Harrell, Sue Gunn, Hunter Hassig, and we had a late application that we will need to have a motion to be able to consider that. And it was a late application from Joshua Levinson. So what's the will of the council on the late application? Councilmember Donovan?
Oh, I was going to move to nominate the names that are on there. I didn't have a motion about the late application.
I'll second Donovan's motion.
So there's no motion to accept the late application then?
There's only 3 spots, right? That I'm going off memory, not looking at it, but
yeah.
Did one of those 3? I recall an email of someone withdrawing, but I can't remember if there was a 4th one.
There was a 4th one in our last packet. That one is withdrawn, and then a late one came in. So if we discount the late one, there's 3 nominations for 3 spots.
What's the simple term for this? It's approved by, what was it?
Acclamation, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Barry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jumpstart. My motion was going to be to nominate the applicants that are in our packet.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And Tyler, you seconded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so discussion on that motion. Councilmember Kirshner.
Just for clarification, when we say a late application for future appointments, when is the deadline for applications to be considered timely?
So this is Dana Brown Davis, clerk of the council. So prior to the applications actually being on for approval, 2 weeks prior to that, generally, they will be on for introduction. And the time frame within which people need to submit their applications is listed there. It's usually 10 a.m. of the week prior to your council meeting, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday of the week prior to your council meeting.
Is that codified, or is that just practice?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Kathy. I can't remember.
Okay, it would be good to have sort of a consistent approach to how
It is,
we're gonna.
the time frame is always consistent. I think we do it. People have about 3 weeks to get in their applications, and then it goes on the agenda.
And we post the deadline in the announcement.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Frazee.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm always impressed. Every time I'm impressed with the type of applicants we get and the expertise they're bringing. And I really appreciate people donating their time. And also I want to point out that Dr. Gunn was at Second City, member of the improv comedy group where most of the major comedians come from. So I think her sense of humor will be helpful, especially when we're dealing with climate change. So I want to thank everyone. Yeah.
Many of the SNL cast that came from Second City. Yeah. Councilmember Donovan.
No, I was going to say, we do sometimes extend the application deadline if there's not enough applicants. So, but I think Ms. Kirshner's got a good point. Like, what is the kind of procedure, hard stop things that we have on these?
Councilmember Buchanan, if I could just jump in, I looked up the code and the deadline, the 10 a.m. on the Tuesday, the week prior to the council meeting is in the code 2.03.050.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that. Councilmember ELENBAAS.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think for our staff's sake and for the sake of fairness, I think we should probably stick to the deadline, or why would we have a deadline in the first place?
Councilmember Donovan.
So Kathy Halka just raised an interesting point. So I'm pretty sure we have at times extended the deadline. Is that then improper given what is in the code? Now, I'm not saying we want to extend it right now, but I just, in the past, I think we have. Are we not able to do that?
I think that if we extend, this is Dana Brown Davis, if we extended the deadline for receipt of applications, it still would be that 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd like to also mention one thing about these applicants is that one of the 3 appointees will have to be assigned to the position that expires 1/31 of 2021, and the other 2 will expire on that same date in 2023. So that'll have to be a choice that the council will need to make. Thank you.
Councilmember Byrd.
Thanks. As Dana just pointed out, one of the seats expires of the 3 here this coming year, January 31st. Dana, can we send anyone or the individual who applied late an email just saying, hey, you didn't make the threshold, but there's this seat as well as a couple others on the committee that are going to be turning over, and we'd like to reconsider your application in January if you'd like to apply again then.
Sure, I can pass that information on to Jill.
Okay, thank you. And then as it relates to who goes into what seat for the short term or the longer term, I feel like we've talked about this 1,000 times in the last 3 years, but maybe we just do a set format, alphabetical. First person based on alphabet, either first name or last name, is always the ones, we just move down the list to fill the short seats and then the long seats. Always do it the same way. What do you think?
I always thought there was people in grade school that got ripped off because their name started with a Z, because I knew a few of those. So I wouldn't be in favor of that.
Figured it'd make it easy, but I'll go for any other solution then. Who else has an idea?
Councilmember ELENBAAS.
How about, so we can make up for a lifetime of them having to be last, that we go reverse alphabetical order, starting with the last letter of the alphabet. They get the first seat.
Or you could alternate it for every time you do an appointment to that committee, you go A to Z, and the next time you go Z to A. I don't know. That's pretty complicated though, huh? Todd?
Yeah, somebody have to remember that. So we have the motion. I would just think we could dispose of the motion to approve, to nominate these or accept these, and then do the who gets the short seat as the second action.
Correct. The only motion we have right now is to select these 3 folks into the committee. Councilmember Byrd.
All right, always looking for something new. Both Dr. Sue and Mr. Stevens, let's see here, both submitted their applications Mr. Stevens did it first on September 1st, and Dr. Sue did it second on the 17th at 11:43. So I would give those 2, since they were the first ones to get their applications in, the 2 longer seats, and the third person, the shorter seat. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Would that be amending the motion?
Oh, so you're amending Todd's motion then, right?
Yeah, I assume we were going to appoint and assign seats at the same time, but if you want to do it separate, we could do that too.
What do you want to do, Todd? It's your motion.
Yeah, as long as I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it go forward. So, that the amendment then would be who had the latest application in.
Yeah, sorry about that. It was actually Dr. Sue that had the latest by 3 minutes.
It's Dr. Gunn, actually. No, I mean, actually, I like all 3 of these applicants, and I've just heard a lot of people voicing support for Dr. Gunn. So I'd like to have her as one of the people who has one of the longer seats, and whatever criteria we use to get to the other 2, we could flip a coin or something, for all I care.
I withdraw my second.
Councilmember Frazee.
No, I was just wondering where Councilmember Byrd was getting the information, because I have Mr. Hassig as the later application. I'm just going by today's date in the packet, and his was the latest date. His was 9/15 and hers was 9/12, Dr. Gunn's. So I'm not sure where you're getting the information.
I was just looking at the timestamp on the form confirmation, the bottom right hand of their application. There's the date and timestamp for each of when the form was submitted from the website.
Right, and then Mr. Hassig is the latest, is that correct? 9/15 at 4:10?
So what I see is Dr. Gunn is 9/17 at 11:43 a.m. and Mr. Hassig was 9/17 at 11:41. So, I mean, they were filling it out at the same time. But
Councilmember Byrd.
Yeah.
It looks like the dates you're looking at are the dates that the document was PDF'd. Councilmember Frazee is looking at the correct dates for when the forms were actually emailed to the council office.
Okay.
But remember that, Tyler, details.
Details, I like it. No, always got to learn something. So
Okay.
we
So,
can still do
Bud,
that.
you want to reinstate your second?
I'll reinstate my second.
Okay, we reinstated the second. You gonna stand by your motion, Tyler?
Yeah, matter of fact, I'd like to use that moving forward, period, for everything. So it's unbiased, simple, straightforward.
Okay, discussion on the amended motion. So that's your motion, Todd, correct? Or are we gonna consider this?
No, I think we have a good amendment to the motion and we can move forward.
So we'll vote on the amendment. Okay, Kathy Kirschner.
I just wanted to say that with these three applicants, it doesn't really matter to me which one gets the shorter term and which two get the longer term. But I do want to just say that in future appointments or confirmations, there may be a difference. So I'd be not willing to support a standard procedure of just using their date of application. And I like to look at their applications for qualifications and who they are. I think these three are all equally qualified, so I'm going to go along with this. But in the future, I'm going to reserve my right to not.
I agree with you. Any further discussion?
That's fair.
Okay, we'll vote on the amendment. Kathy, please call the roll.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Abstain.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
That passes 6-0 with ELENBAAS abstaining. So the amendment passes. Now we're to the main motion to approve these three folks being appointed to the Climate Impact Advisory Committee. Any more discussion on that motion? Okay, please call the roll.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Abstain.
That passes 6-0-1 with Councilmember ELENBAAS abstaining. Next up is AB 2020-407. It's an appointment to the Birch Bay Watershed and Aquatic Resources Management Advisory Committee, otherwise known as BBWARM. The applicants are Teresa Coe, Michael Allen, and this is the council acting as the Whatcom County Flood Control Zone District Board of Supervisors. Do I have a motion? Councilmember ELENBAAS.
I was going to ask a question real quick, a procedural question, didn't we get an email that one of the individuals was not qualified because they didn't live in the district?
Yes, Councilmember ELENBAAS, this is Jill Nixon, council staff. Yes, Teresa Coe is not qualified because she lives in Point Roberts currently.
So we can strike Teresa then from this agenda bill, right?
That's correct.
Thanks for catching that, Ben. Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, I'm using the Legistar. Don't have a hard copy of stuff. I've only got the Allen application. So the Co one is not eligible. So we have just one applicant for one spot. Is that where we're at?
That's correct.
Okay, well, thanks.
Further discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Do we have a motion, actually?
We don't have a motion.
So I'll move to.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion.
The word I always forget. Todd, what is it?
Acclamation.
Yeah, that.
Right. Move to approve by acclamation. Michael Allen.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Okay, we really can't do acclamation. So we'll still have to call the roll, but That's okay. Please call the roll.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
Abstain.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
That passes 6-0-1 with Councilmember ELENBAAS abstaining. Next is executive appointments to boards, commissions, and committees, AB 2020-429. The county executive requests confirmation of his appointments per the attached list, and I assume that's a slate for the Whatcom County Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials, known as the Salary Commission. Do we have a motion to confirm? Councilmember Donovan,
I move to confirm. I have a question.
do we have a second?
Second.
Councilmember Byrd seconds. Yes, Councilmember Donovan.
I think you kind of, so this is, we're not looking at the applicants, this is the list that we're getting from the executive and we vote up or down. That's how it works.
Yeah, right in that right, Sapal, you submitted a slate.
Okay.
Years, in the odd years, that we appoint a salary commission for the elected officials. And you guys can hear me because my microphone is not working pretty good. Not working good today. Sorry. I didn't try my headphones either. So, so 8 people, 8 person are appointed by the county auditor, and 4 people are appointed by the county executive. And these 4 people, there are 4 categories of them. I think there's one person must be from HR, one person must be from organized labor, one person must be attorney, and one more. I don't have notes in front of me. It is a specific categories. County executive has to pick those people for appointment. So we go through the process, reach out to people. Sometimes in the past, advertisement has been put in, but it is up to the county executive to reach out to people and ask them to apply. And then, so we did 2 or 3 tries. These are the 4 people we got. So I sent the recommendation. The county auditor will send the recommendation for rest of them. And then they start their work in January 2021. And I think by September or October of 2021, they will bring the recommendations to the county council on the salaries, whatever they recommend. They study similar counties, similar situation, economic situation, many factors. They have the full process and a protocol for that. So that's what salary commission follows. So this was my thing to appoint these people so they can be ready to start their work in early 2020.
Sapal, I have a question. The one that the ones that the auditor puts forward, those are, it's said that they're done by lot. Is that done just off the voter registration rolls?
I am not really sure. That probably they are. I know that the 2 bodies appoint to the salary commission.
Okay.
I can get that information and send it.
Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, it's just, if it's by lot, it's just, I run if it Dewey Dessler ended up in there. But it was make what Barry's thinking.
I don't know, but maybe. Mr. Byrd.
And just for point of clarity, I believe last time this came up in front of us, we learned that we were just making a motion that actually had no impact, that we legally have no ability to approve those. And so we decided not to have them come before us moving forward. So we won't see the salary commission findings and the request to approve those in the future.
Councilmember ELENBAAS.
Yeah, I don't think we should vote on people who are going to decide on our salary. So I'm just going to abstain from this. And if it comes back, I'll abstain from that too.
Procedure wise, Jill or Dana, can you tell us if that is this a mandatory process for confirmation?
I'm not sure. I think I'm remembering a different, kind of a similar item that was decided that wouldn't come forward to the council anymore, but I would have to look into that.
Well, I
It
think
may
that
have
was,
been this
I think
one,
that
but
was the findings, what the recommendations are, right? Is that what you're talking about, right, Tyler?
oh, okay.
It wasn't the appointments, it was the salary recommendations, because they
Right,
included.
that's right, that's correct.
So we don't know if this body decided as a body not to want to participate in the salary commission because of feelings of whether of what Ben had said, would they not be able to serve? I guess that's my question.
I don't know if that's in the code or not. I can look that up. I just can't look it up super quickly because I'm on one computer, and I can try to get to it before you get to introduction or the end of introduction items. If you want to hold this for a couple minutes.
What do you think, Councilmember ELENBAAS?
Yeah, I mean, I know it would be another layer of cost to have an election, but I would think, just like charter review, that salary commission would be elected, but it's not. So, but maybe that's something we need to think about in the future.
Is a salary commission in our code, or is it something that the state RCW's mandated?
It's in our code.
Okay, Sapal, you wanted to say something?
I just want to say that we are merely, this motion today is just to appoint the people. How council wants to see the recommendations or not, that's a separate process. Today, we just, as the code, we just have to appoint the salary commission. That's what we are doing.
Councilmember Donovan?
I was just, yeah, it had already been answered that it is in our code. It's an ordinance that was passed before any of us were here. And as I remember, when the findings came to us and we all wanted to abstain, it really didn't matter because it was just like a done deal last time. Because we all wanted to abstain. And that's my memory of it.
I see we have some guidance maybe coming from Ms. Frakes.
I just looked at the ordinance, and 4 out of the 10 members of this committee are selected by the executive and have to be approved by the council.
Okay, well, there you go. That's the answer. The other ones that are done by lot are just, that doesn't apply then.
Right.
Councilmember Byrd.
Yeah, I see that too. Thanks, Karen. I understand what Ben's getting at, that in theory, we could be approving people to those 4 seats that could be increasing the amount that we make. And so in a roundabout way, there's a conflict of interest because we could gain personally from that. And I think it's a super valid point. Maybe something, Ben, that we look at moving forward is that the Charter Commission actually reviews the salaries at that time and approves the schedule instead, of doing something entirely separate. But I understand what you're saying, and I agree.
But that's only once every 10 years, though, the Charter Commission. So
25.
Yeah, 25 is the next one. Ben, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to point out exactly what you guys did, that every 10 years might be too long. And they could also lower our salaries too. So I just, they don't have to increase them.
Councilmember Kirshner.
Thank you. I was on the council when this passed, and what we used to do is the council used to approve the salaries. But the way it's set up is that this current council does not approve our salaries. It approves the next cycle. So, and I think the salary commission works the same way. So we're not really approving our current salaries or our increases. We would have to be reelected and serve another term to take advantage of any kind of salary increase that the commission might put in place. So there is quite a bit of distance between us making an approval tonight and us receiving any benefit from that. So.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Kathy, I appreciate that insight. I mean, that makes actually a ton of sense and is a really smart, logical way about doing it. So glad you were there and that you could pass that along.
I wish it was my idea, but I just remember that's how it worked.
I think it's half right. I think half of us would be under that setting and half of us wouldn't, because it would be a 21-22 salary or 22-23 salary review. So there would still be some council members on board that didn't have to run in 21. So it's almost as you described it, but like yourself, Ben, and Carol, you guys aren't up till 23, so you would not be in that same position.
I think though that the salary commission is making the decision for salaries starting in 24, but we could get Karen to weigh in on that. I just know we never made any decisions that would affect our own salary.
Same with the city council. We were careful that we had the same kind of a situation that you described.
Yeah.
Councilmember ELENBAAS?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say maybe the three of us abstain. But I think Kathy's right. I think
I do too.
They're doing the work in 23 that goes into 24. So
okay, any further discussion? Okay, please call the roll. Are you there, Kathy?
I'm here. Sorry for the delay.
Okay.
Red Brown,
Yes, reluctantly.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
abstain.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yeah.
That passes 6-0-1 with Council Member ELENBAAS abstaining. We are now in introduction. We have 6 items for introduction for 2 weeks from tonight. Do I have a motion to introduce?
Move to introduce.
Second.
I didn't catch who did the first one.
Tyler beat me.
Tyler, so it's Tyler and Councilmember Brown seconds.
I figured it was like paper, rock, scissors and we had to do it again.
Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Please call a roll.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Todd Donovan,
Yes.
Ben ELENBAAS,
No.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Kathy Kirschner,
Yes.
Red Brown,
Yes.
That passes 6-1 with Councilmember ELENBAAS opposed. Committee reports. First committee this morning was Committee of the Whole executive session. We talked about labor negotiations and strategies. There was no decisions made. It was for information only. The next committee was finance. We've already covered it. Did we have anything, Tyler, that you had left from finance that didn't get resolved tonight that you wanted to report on?
No.
Okay. What about, we had another committee of the whole meeting where we discussed the CPACER program, which is a program for commercial buildings to be able to obtain financing through their assessment through the the assessor's office and the treasurer's office. It's a program that's very popular in the state of Washington. It's for energy upgrades, and we had a really, really thorough briefing on that, and I think we're going to hear more to come. So next was Carol's committee, I believe. No, it was Ben's committee was next.
Yeah, so other than the public participation plan for Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulation Amendments, we also discussed that we already voted to approve, but we also discussed mobile home park regulations and how we can incorporate tiny homes to fit into that. There's a lot of good discussion going on there.
Thank you.
No action was taken.
Councilmember Frazee, Public Works and Health.
Yeah, so for Public Works and Health, Councilmember Donovan took over for the, because we had a 5-hour power outage in Whatcom Falls neighborhood. But we had a discussion about the 6-year capital improvement program for Whatcom County facilities. We had a discussion by Public Works about the proposed resolution adopting the 2021 annual construction program, the ACP. And then we also had a discussion about the ordinance for the Whatcom County Child and Family Wellbeing Task Force about the changes.
You're muted, Barry.
Other items of business. Does anybody have anything else? Councilmember Byrd?
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times over the last 2 years. Most recently, when COVID first came down, we asked everyone to stay home. But I would like to bring it back. And so I'm going to bring an ordinance back next time to the committee in relation to the excess computers that we have downstairs. We were spending a ton of money to get out there and to buy computer equipment for children and families that are in the county that can't afford it already, and to get them internet access. And my impression is that that amount of money isn't going to be enough to cover everyone. And yet we're still paying a company to come and take those old computers that are still functional by any means and to recycle them. And so it's costing us money to throw them in the dump. So rather than that, we can save some taxpayer dollars and we can get more computers in the hands of people who need it. So just FYI, that'll be coming forward. And if any council members would like to be on that with me, please send me an email and let me know. I welcome the support.
Other items of business. Councilmember Kershner.
I don't know if this is business, it's an announcement. Does that count?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. I just wanted to say October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and 1 in 7 women are affected by this disease. So get your mammograms and your screenings, women, and it also affects men. So pay attention to that. And then I also wanted to announce that the next time we meet, October 27th, I will be a proud grandmother of 2 twin boys. So they're scheduled to be born on the 23rd, and they're going to be very premature, so say a prayer for them. But I'm very excited about that.
Well, if you'd let them go one more day, they'd be on my birthday.
Oh, my son's birthday is the 24th. So yeah, okay. Well, Barry, you share my son's birthday. So he's going to have these 2 babies. They're going to be his birthday babies.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's a good segue into council member updates. Councilmember Brown.
I just want to say to Kathy, first off, congratulations. I envy you. That's my new definition of wealth as grandchildren. And the second is our family just had 2 premature twin boys and they're doing great.
That's awesome, Red. Any other council member updates? Council member ELENBAAS.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everybody that it's harvest time, and if you could have some patience with with maybe slow moving farm machinery or a little bit of dirt on the road, have some patience and grace for those folks who only have a small window to get all their crops in for the year, and just remember that that helps feed everybody.
Any, Councilmember Frazee?
Yes, I want to congratulate Councilmember Kirshner and Brown. And also last week, Executive Sadhu and I went to the Crisis Stabilization Center to the open house, or to look it over. And it's not complete yet. Maybe hopefully everything will be ready by January. But I just want to thank, Ann Deacon, and I don't know if I say his name correctly, Robert Nye, our facilities manager. Is it Nye? The detail that went into this, and even Ann Deacon and her aesthetics, and just to make it look like a warm, welcoming place. And Rob and his team, how they showed me even on the sides of the outside of the building, the reason the courthouse had to get redone is because the water, how it would collect, and the things they put in place to make sure the water leaks down, and the things they've done on the roof, and just the amount of detail that they really thought about, and to make this last for a long time and make sure it's a welcoming place for people is just amazing. So I just want to thank them and everyone that put work into it.
Any other council member updates? Councilmember Brown?
Sorry, just point of clarity. I had two grandnephews, not two grandchildren.
You had us all excited.
Oh, I got two grandchildren, but
oh, there you go.
But I didn't. The recent ones were grandnephews.
All right, everybody. You all have a good week. We'll see you on the 20th for the big work session. We are adjourned.